Let's build our kill volume mechanic. So these could be hazards where if the player touches them, the player will be destroyed and return to the last checkpoint. We built the checkpoint. So let's expand on that. For my kill volume, I'm just going to make a cube. Bring this up here, stretch it out, and this should be, this should just be a lot of review and reiteration at this point. So I'm gonna move a little bit quicker, but ultimately I want my, let's make a material and call this kill volume. Now your material doesn't necessarily have to be red, just be consistent with it. One thing that I do want to show you, just something a little bit different each time. So I'm going to drag this onto the shape first. And I want to show you that emissive, once we get into lighting, let's say if this was lava, we could, or some, I don't know, red acid or something, we could actually give off a glow on this depending on our lighting. And the quick way to do that, just make sure you select your kill volume. Or you could select it from the item like I did over here. Either way is fine. But the kill volume, down in emission, turn that on, and then just right click your color, copy, paste. You'll see it kind of changed a little bit. It's giving an extra glow. You can see the preview down here, or drag it up if you don't see it. It's just a cool way to give off light. And once you get into light baking, this will actually bake out, which you can control. But anyways, I just want to show you that real quick. So this is our kill volume. Let's rename this to be kill volume. And we're going to make our script. Again, I prefer to make my script where I want it first and then attach it. If you do it this way, it'll try to auto bring it up. Just make sure that you apply the script, because you will be unsure why your script isn't working. It's just because you need to drag and drop it onto the object. Okay, so make sure that you apply the kill volume script you just created to the kill volume. Double click that. And let's talk about what we need. We need our onTrigger enter, right? And then we also want to make sure that it's the player, so more review. Part of the purpose of this is to get you in the habit of just making this over and over again. This is primarily how you're going to test if a thing is the player, and later on we would maybe trigger an animated sequence if it's the player, or we might trigger something else. Detecting the player through triggers you will do fairly often. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to pseudocode this. I want to access the player controller script again, and then I want to kill the player. And then we could define what killing the player means on a kill the player function on the player controller. Whoops, get this back. I was actually typing this ahead of time, so let's delete that. All right, so kill the player. First thing, we need to get access to our player controller again, just like we did before. So create a variable to store this into of type player controller. And again, since we have access to the collider on the player, right? This collider, because it enters the trigger, and our script is over here, saying the other thing that enters, do a local search for something of type player controller. This is our player controller script. If we actually found something, it's not empty, then we want to kill the player. Okay, so to kill the player, I can start typing this out. Player controller dot kill player. Right, and it's not going to recognize it because this doesn't really exist yet. I'm going to go to my player controller, and just like I did before, I'm going to make void kill player. And I'm not even going to pass it anything. I just, whatever happens to the player, I want to define it here. And then last step, it's still not going to recognize it. So make sure that you declare this function as being public, meaning that things outside of this script can call it. So other scripts can call it externally. So double check your spelling here. Player controller dot kill player. Player controller. Okay, cool. So Now we just have to figure out what we want to do. Well, maybe we want to move player back to respawn point, which we've determined up here, right? So we want to take this, whatever this value currently is, we want to move the position of the player to be equal to this value. So simple enough. That's just going to be, first of all, how do I get access to the player's position? Well, the player controller script. Let's remind ourselves of where we are in the scene. This is our player. This is our player controller script. From here, I just want to access the transform on this player, and I want to access the position inside of this transform. And I want to reassign the X, Y, Z values to be whatever is stored inside of our respawn point. So this is what I'm trying to get to. If I just access the same game object that this player controller script is on, I can just go into the transform and then go into the position. So we're on our player controller script, just move upwards a little bit to the game object, right? And then just like before, I said that this is kind of assumed. We can just automatically access a transform of the game object of whatever the script is attached to. So transform will access the player transform dot position. This is our XYZ inside of the transform component. And we want to reassign it to be the respawn point. So up here, just have respawn point. And there's actually one more step that I would do. Let's double check. I think this is going to cause issues, but let's figure it out. Let's figure it out, and then I'll show you the safe way. Either way. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to touch the kill volume, and first step. Why is this happening? Well, it's because it is a collider, a collision volume, not a trigger. So to make it a trigger, say, yes, I do want to allow things to pass through this, but I want to be able to call on trigger enter. Okay. Now, there we go. So do you see the problem? Whenever we respawn the player, yeah, see, we're retaining our velocity. And we probably don't want that. I mean, it's kind of cool, but let's say the last step is kill all velocity on player rigid body. Right? We just want to say reset it, have it starting from 0. Easy way to do that? Well, if you look back up here, back at the beginning, we already have access to the rigid body component. We stored it at the very, very start and just put it inside of a thing that we can access. So now that we have this component, we can access it, can access the velocity. And we just want to reassign it to 0, right? And the velocity is an XYZ value. It's the direction that we're moving. And we're just going to say new vector3, 0, 0, 0. That should just kill the velocity. I believe we can also reassign it to, yeah, well, don't worry about that. Anyways, I'm going to minimize this. And now, when we move inside of our kill volume, you see how it cuts our speed right there? And that's a little bit better. But just to test our checkpoint, let's touch the checkpoint, respawn. Cool, and maybe we have multiple checkpoints, right? Each checkpoint has a different position that it will send to the player controller to store. So we should just be able to do this kill volume or this kill volume. Cool, so now you can set checkpoints across your level.